Hello there, Ray here, as well as Pingu,
Hello.
and we would like to show you an infinitely automatic AFK bedrock breaking flying machine. What this machine allows you to do is to be able to set it up, and once it's set up, you are able to just AFK your account inside of the flying machine, and this will allow you to automatically be able to break bedrock for an infinite amount of time. Typically, you would use this device to remove the bedrock in your perimeter after first removing the blocks above it. So to remove the blocks above it, you can use such things like as our two-dimensional TNT query, which I will link down in the description. And after those blocks are removed, then you could come in and use this device to remove all the bedrock down to Y level 0. The way we remove the bedrock is by using the trick with dragon eggs, placing them and having them drop in lazy processing chunks. I talked about this before, and this allows us to be able to remove the bedrock layer by layer, all the way down to Y level 0. To our knowledge, this is the first infinitely automatic AFK bedrock breaking machine. The entire machine is quite compact and is designed for easy setup, so people that are quite lazy like myself can easily set this up and you end up AFKing more than you will be building it. And this way you don't have to put so much time into setting up a large contraption. Some of the devices in here are quite small, but they all work together to make this work. And one of the devices which we have shown before is this lazy processing chunk detector. This works really good with this device because it will allow us to automatically be able to detect once the dragon eggs are in a lazy processing chunk, and therefore we can drop them and allow them to break the bedrock. We specifically designed this to be able to be easily built up. This means the majority of the parts will be able to move across large distances without having to be built. So the only part that really needs to be built as you build this machine bigger is this two parts here. One is the place where you place the dragon eggs, and the other part is the part that moves this piece along. The main heart of this device is the lazy processing chunk detector, which Pingu has added on a counter which counts up to 4. So instead of having us place down 4 rows of dragon eggs and then drop them onto here to remove the 4 layers of bedrock, we instead will break 1 layer of bedrock at a time, and for this reason, we need to only move the device forward after it has broken all 4 layers. So what we have is the device counting up to 4, and after it hits number 4, it will move this device forward, as well as all these devices, and as well as itself. The way that this device would be used is the player would be sitting in this minecart here, and he'd be holding down right click, which you can use several tricks, which I've shown before, and you will aim at the edge of the slime blocks over there, and you can be able to place the dragon eggs down. Now, to get the flying machine to be able to move in 2 directions, we used a simple two-way flying machine hooked up to another two-way flying machine. This works great. So I can demonstrate this by just by updating this piece here, and you'll see the flying machine will go forward and it will grab this block here, and then it will move to the side, and this will allow the player to be able to place the dragon eggs along the edge here. At the very end of it, there is a bumper which will allow the flying machine to move backwards, and then the player is still placing down dragon eggs, but since they're already placed, he just goes along with it. And afterwards, the player is moved far away from the dragon eggs, and he will move the same distance as you have your render distance. So if your render distance is 210, then you would want to have this device and this secondary bumper device 10 chunks apart from each other. Now once this flying machine comes back, it will come all the way back to this bumper, which also has a counter that counts up to 4, and it will move itself forward. So you can see when it bumped into it, it pushed it away as well as updated itself, so it moved itself forward 1 meter as well. Now, thing to notice is that when the player is all the way over here, that is when the lazy processing chunk detector will be able to detect that this chunk is in a lazy processing chunk, and therefore it will automatically drop the dragon eggs, and therefore the player doesn't have to do anything. Like I said, this allows you to be able to infinitely, automatically AFK while breaking bedrock. So we can demonstrate this working by, let's say, the machine is sitting here and we placed in our eggs, and then we get in our flying machine, we fly all the way out to the very outer edge where the bumper is set at. This will allow this machine to be a lazy processing chunk, which means that this piston will no longer get powered by this machine down here. So if I just remove this rail, you see that it would drop the eggs, and in a lazy processing chunks, it wouldn't be able to move the eggs out again. Instead, they would drop straight down. That's the difference between an entity processing chunk and a lazy processing chunk. Then it comes across, and this observer here is pointing downward, which will activate this piston here, which will activate this flying machine down here. This flying machine's job is to move across the entire width of the perimeter and remove the dragon eggs so that we are able to drop another set of dragon eggs. And otherwise, if you drop one dragon egg on top of another dragon egg, the one dragon egg will just replace the dragon egg that is down here. Now this device is really compact. It's only 8 meters wide, and this was designed by Pingu. And what this does is when it gets a signal, it will also count to 4, as well as activate this smaller flying machine, which goes all the way to the opposite side of the perimeter where this device is set up. And this device job is to move itself forward as well as to send this little flying machine back. We're even able to break all the dragon eggs up to the very edge. This is done by having this very last layer have no slime blocks in it. So if there happen to be a block in this over here, then there is no slime blocks for it to be able to catch on to that block and stop it. And this machine over here, like I said, has the counter, so it's able to count to 4, and after counting to 4, it will move itself forward as well as this little device in front of it. And this allows us so that once we have removed all 4 layers, it will move itself forward and be ready to remove the next layer of dragon eggs. Now, just as that one, this side also does not have any blocks, so it won't be able to get, it doesn't have any slime blocks here, so I won't be able to catch up on the walls. And it's also liquid proof, so if liquid runs by it, it should not be able to affect it, and it should just be able to keep moving forward, keep destroying the dragon eggs. So we can demonstrate the entire machine moving forward. So this is where the machine gets its update. If we remove this block here, the machine will come along and break the dragon eggs and reach the end, in which case it will, this section here will move itself forward, and then when this device comes over here, it will move itself forward as well. Very slick, and like I said, it's only 8 meters wide. This is really nice because when you first have to make this device, you would first have to make a hole to be able to build this down in the hole. So you'd have to first break some bedrock. Now you can use this device above it to be able to drop the dragon eggs when you first start to try to make this hole. But since you won't have this device down here, you have to just remove the eggs more manually. Then once you have a 8-meter wide hole that is 4 meters deep and as long as or as wide as your perimeter, then you can come in and build in this device and then hook it up with this machine, and they will work in synchronization. So when it's time for this device to move forward, these 2 rows will also move forward. So what this piece here is just for the holding the dragon egg, and this piece here is just to move itself forward. And we can demonstrate this just by activating this over here. So if I just place that down here, we see that this device here will move itself forward, and this device here will also move itself forward. Everything moves for 1 meter, and that is the nice thing about this whole contraption, is that pretty much every device will move itself forward all by itself 1 meter, so you don't have to build anything. And this way you can be able to just AFK for the infinite amount of time that you want to break as much bedrock as you want. So we have 2 variations of this machine. The only difference is that this one is more compact, but you only can be able to fly this one if you have the appropriate amount of room behind you to fly at such a low level. For this one, the 2 devices are separate, and the top half will work independently of the bottom half, but they're both synchronized because they both have the lazy processing chunk detector. So they both go off at the same time, and we'll be able to do the same things as that one. The only difference with this one is that being up high in the air, you are able to put this device above the surrounding land. So if you have your perimeter over here where the land is all removed, but just outside of it, you have just normal land, so it's up high. This way, when the flying machine is flying away from your perimeter, it doesn't crash into the wall of blocks. Instead, it'll be up above it, and you can fly over top of it, so you can go out the amount of chunks that you needed to go out to allow this to be in a lazy processing chunk. So the second half of the machine, which is down here, also has pretty much the same lazy processing chunk detector as that one. The only difference is that it comes around and goes down here and updates this very bottom machine. So having the player be able to ride in the minecart allows you to be able to AFK it, but what allows it to be infinitely automatic, which just means that once you have started up, you don't have to do anything and it will continually on forever. So we can do this by removing the bumper and allowing this flying machine to travel all the way back to your spawn chunks. By coming back to your spawn chunks, you're able to pick up more dragon eggs which are being duplicated and sent into your exit end portal. and this will allow them to appear at your world spawn point, at which point you can pick them up as a player and then take them back to your location. Now, I did show a simple way to be able to duplicate dragon eggs, and this is this machine here. Very simple. Then once you have the machine going, if you just have dragon eggs in here, this will allow them to duplicate by going into the portal while also being set onto this block here. I will link it down in the description if you want to know more about this machine, but this can either be done in the entrance end portal as well as the exit end portal. Either way, you can then send the duplicated items into your exit end portal and then into your world spawn point, which at that point they can be picked up at your flying machine. And this is the only way we could really figure out to make this infinitely automatic. Other methods such as hoppers or like minecarts would either have to be placed by the player to get out to where the player is querying, or such things like the minecarts, which have hoppers or chests on them, would have to be broken to be able to get for the player to be able to reach them. Now there is another option to allow the player to collect more eggs, and this is just by transporting more eggs in this area here. So if the player is holding eggs in his main hand as well as offhand, he is able to break a width of a perimeter that is 8 chunks wide just by using these two hands. Now if we want to break a perimeter that is wider than 8 chunks, then this is where you would probably want to have the machine drop some eggs off and just on top of this device. And then once the player has used up his eggs, then he can pick up more here. Now this would not be infinitely automatic, but you can do this to allow your player to do wider sections of your perimeter. So if you would allow dragon eggs to ride with the player, they would despawn after 5 minutes, and this will allow the flying machine to travel 37 chunks in that time. So you can use this to allow yourself to get out quite a bit farther than the spot where you pick up your dragon eggs. Just by placing a few light sources on some of these devices, we can allow it so that mobs will not be able to spawn in here. Therefore, while you're AFKing at night, you don't have to worry about any skeletons or creepers coming near the player and killing the player or even destroying your machine. We've also taken into consideration for lightning as well as snow. So we have blocked off all observers that have sky access, as well as even placed a trapdoor in here to prevent snow layers from updating this observer. It was challenging to get all the parts of this machine working, but it was a lot of fun working with Pingu because we work very well together because we both look at each other's slimestone and we figure out different ways to make it compact as well as even better. Now, if you would like to build this up in your very own survival world, I will provide the world download to this in the description. I highly recommend with a device this large that you first test it out in creative. This is because something like this, where there is multiple counters and the counters all need to be synchronized, the bottom counter will be on 1, where the top counter will be on 0. This counter is not as specific. You also need to pay attention to things like making sure that nobody accidentally comes into this chunk while the other players are going off into lazy processing chunks trying to drop these eggs if you happen to be on a multiplayer server using this. So there you have it, guys. First infinitely automatic AFK bedrock breaking machine. So if you found this interesting, show me with a like. If you'd like to see more crazy contraptions like this, subscribe. And don't forget, if you have any questions, be sure to comment. Bye-bye.